So I've already introduced Ntabiseng Sibaya from Ibasa. She's looking after membership. So anything membership like, you need to contact her. Hi, Tabi.
Hi, Carol. Hi, everybody.
Hi, also.
And then we've got Tumelo Chochechi, who Ibasa members in the Free State will know very well.
Good morning. Hi, everyone.
Yeah, he's involved with Grants Thornton, of course, sort of a chartered accountant, so as a business advisor that looks after money matter mostly. Also a certified business advisor with Ibasa. And if I can move on to Patrick Archie. Hi, Patrick.
Hi.
Yeah, it's nice having you here as business coach and advisor, also a member of Ibasa and the IMCSA. So professional body membership is important because it gives us the standing in the society, of course, but it's also because we can increase our skills and ability to serve our customers. So it's great to see that people are members of not only Ibasa, but also other professional bodies that are contributing that way. And then who shall I move on to the next? Linda Nkusani. If I can try. Some of us have that challenge too. Founder and Chief Marketing Officer at Links Business Solutions. Welcome here, Linda.
Thank you, Christoph, and good morning to everyone. And yeah, we're all the way from London.
Yeah, great. Yeah, we cover the whole country, eh? And then Daphne, also a board member. Hi, Daphne.
Hi, Christoph. Good morning, all members and non-members. Welcome.
Yeah, so Daphne Motloa, if you don't know, is the CFO of the WNR CETA. So also, of course, looking into the skills development thing is very important for us. And also Ibasa board member, so contributing on that level too. And then lastly, Carol, I see you don't have your camera on, but we will have your camera on soon because we're going to come to you very soon. So maybe if you want to switch your camera on, we can see you too.
Morning, Christoph. Morning, all.
Okay, so the format of the discussion here today is for us to talk about the tips that people can follow that we can use in working with our customers when it comes to this period in the year where they say, oh gosh, cash, the cash flows look so bad, what can we do? And what advice we can give them. Now, we went about in asking, in fact, there was some emails sent out and so on too, asking anyone that wants to contribute tips, and we disseminated that into about 20, I think, Carl, is that right?
Yes, that's well. Actually, we had a lot between the panelists and 20 or so that we received, and then what the people post in their registration. Also, thank you for that. So, a wide range of input.
Okay, but we've got the panel here today to give us a bit more detail on some of those tips. But Carl, before we get to the panelists, sort of if you can give us a explanation of those tips that we received and how we can understand them. I think we've got a bunch, like 20 or so of them that we can share.
Yes, Christoph, there's a whole list, I think, but I think what is important, if we look at the bigger picture, what comes out of it is that that we really need to look almost in a two-dimensional way at it on the one time in terms of, and it's maybe more than that when we're going to start to listen to shoot, that it's looking at timelines, but also at business functions. So the first thing, we're now in November and we're talking about cash grants over the holidays, which is sort of almost next week.
So sorry, Carl, I must interrupt you. I made a faux pas there. Hey, so there's so many people in the room that didn't mention shoot at all.
Okay.
Sorry, shoot. My apology. But now all the attention is on you. So maybe if we can we spotlight him? Give him the deserved attention there.
Hopefully you're working up to it.
Yeah, you should have waved your hand. But thank you very much for joining us. Executive Coach and at Intro Revival, that's kind of give us a cue, and perhaps also in terms of what your focus is. But we're looking forward to hearing your tips here today too.
My focus is on developing leaders, and that's really on all levels and discovering them. But not just on a normal business level. We go a bit further. I have made that mistake in my past where we don't look at the wholeness of a person trying to give it advice, and then they take the good advice, but they don't follow through because they may have a problem in their spiritual or psychological lives. So we're really looking at it from a holistic point of view.
Great. So cash flow crunch doesn't mean that it's only about cash flow forecasts. I think that's
absolutely not. Absolutely not. And there's 3 levels that should I go with this now?
So let's come back to those ones now. But I just wanted to correct my mistake there from.
It's fine.
Carl, sorry for interrupting you there. But please continue.
Not a problem, Christoph. What I would like to share quickly is, I think that sort of almost like a summary of what we got is, first, you have to look at the long term. So we're talking about cash flow crunch now, and it's about the holidays. But if you don't actually start to work at it long term, when you do your market research, you need to understand what industry you are in, what are the seasonal cycles, and what methods the industry use to, bridge those natural cycles. So don't go and invent the wheel first before you've done your homework. And the second thing is then when you build your business model, build your offering and related flows to ensure you're bridging the low sell cycles. So you work that into your business model. So that's long term, And then I think one of the things that came out, and also in the research that I've done, is, and we often find that as business advisors, make sure your client understands the difference between profit and cash. And there's often a big problem there. So when you assist them in modeling and so on. And then, I think Daphne is going to talk a little bit more about that setup of the business. Make sure you separate between owner and the business, separate accounts and stuff like that. So that's the long term. So in the medium term, when you get into your business plan and budgeting and so on, that is multidimensional. It's not just money management. It's the plan, the budget, the marketing, the credit, and our panelists are going to expand on some of those in almost like case studies, examples. Doing your credit management, supply chain management, HR planning, operations technology, saving for the lean days, and creating credit facilities. So if you want to use, for instance, in the short term, a credit card or a overdraft, you already have to set it up and have that credit available in the medium term. You don't run to the bank when you're in trouble. Then it's a bit late. So make sure when you do your business planning that you do realistic projections in terms of your income cycle and your costs, so that you can see then already what will the cash flow, cyclical cash flow impact be, adapt your strategy, and then identify new ways, offerings. And there's a whole list. And I think one of the things we must do maybe is to share the whole list of everything that we got, because I tell you, it's really an extensive list of tips that we've received. A lot of them that came through in the registration was around budgeting. In other words, if you don't plan up front, you're really going to have a problem. And then planning new ways and manage your cash flow against that budget. So don't just budget and then leave it. So, and then really when it gets to short term, it means we're in crisis mode. I mean, now, if you're not done the long and medium term, you've got a problem now. So it definitely will work best in the short term if we actually preempted the possibility and put crisis solutions. We buy a fire extinguisher, not when the fire comes. Then we don't run to the shop and buy one. We buy one for when the fire comes, and you have to be prepared. So as business advisors, I think our biggest role is to make sure that our customers pre-plan. And then, there's a whole list, holiday specials, promotions, use your debit cards and electronic funds. Don't go into credit. For every account, labor, incentives. If somebody pays before November, give them a voucher for a discount till 25 December. Many different, but I think also be careful then when you're in that crisis mode, and I think Shoot will also a little bit talk about that, is make sure that you protect yourself, be calm, how do you handle it personally, but also make sure that it doesn't go out in the market, that your customers and especially your creditors don't sort of get the idea there's a crisis now. And actually, when you need to negotiate with creditors, you need to do that, but try and keep that in-house as much as possible. Yeah, so for that, we have a long list, and I think for us just to run through the list is not going to be useful further. So I would rather than suggest that we use the time for the panelists to dive into a little bit showing practically how their comments and their tips actually work for clients. Yeah, thank you, Christoph. That's from me for the time being.
Yeah, no, great. Thanks, Carl. That helps a lot. So thinking in the levels, the terms, long-term, medium-term, and immediate. So if you have immediate pain, maybe you want to take an aspirin, but sort of if you have some more serious issues with your brain, then maybe a scan that can plan for a longer-term intervention is needed. So find the right level of, or combination of the right level of stuff. How would you say, Carl? How do we deal with these different levels?
Yeah, as I say, I think the important, naturally, if you are where you are now, you need to do what you need to do. And I think some of the suggestions are also, and I've highlighted that in the setting up of your business, understanding the industry you're in, and so on. And I think that a lot of the panelists also, of the tips reference, to talk to other people. Talk to your network, find out what they do. Don't go and sit and struggle through this alone, and find quick solutions. So naturally, if you are now in a situation, you need to identify within your industry, within your specific business, what can you do now? So it's, we can make broad statements here, but if you don't have a credit facility at the bank, then it's a bit of a crisis to go tap into your credit. If you didn't provide savings, then I think it is limiting cost, try and limit cost where you can, cut all excessive luxuries. Often the entrepreneur in this stage need to make some personal and family sacrifices. So those are all kinds of things that you need to do immediately to make sure that you can continue your business into a upcycle season again.
Oh, great. Let's hear what people say about the tips that we've been receiving. So let's go to the poll on what you reckon the most impactful tips would be. So what we did is thanks, Carl, you worked on this, disseminated all those tips into 10, kind of trying to combine most of them or cover most of them. So if you can select 3 of those tips that we're sharing now in the poll, just click on the poll button and it will open if it's not open on your computer or your phone. And I see there's a lot of voting happening. About a quarter of us have voted already. So if you haven't voted, please do so. So Carl, you're too far. You're on poll 2 now in the slide. So maybe you can go back to poll 1 first.
Oh, you're going, sorry.
Yeah. There you are. So make sure you send your invoices on time and follow up. Consider changing suppliers who may offer better prices or negotiate discounts with existing suppliers. Reduce your overheads and cut costs where possible, including take home by the owners. Or number 4, take pre-orders for next year and offer a discount for repayment. 5, offer a new premium package of products and services for cash or pre-payment only. 6, offer discounts to potential customers who previously indicated they cannot afford your services. 7, use digital and social media marketing to attract new customers. 8, collaborate with other companies who are experiencing increased business in this period. That's an interesting one. 9, cancel your debit orders and pay your accounts when the funds are available. Get a bit more streetwise. And 10, apply for a short-term overdraft facility with your bank or borrow money from trusted friends. Some people will even say max out your credit card if you really need to as a last resort, but that's of course not something that we will advise people easily. Yeah, but there are 10 points, so you can vote on that, what you think the 3 most important ones are that will have the most impact with your clients. and then we can come back to the result of that just now. But let's move forward to a bit more practical from our panelists. So to Melo, I think if we can move to you first, and you don't have to worry, we'll unmute you. You can just smile nicely and tell us, sort of from your perspective. So by the way, sorry, let me just say first, if anyone, if there are some tips that you didn't see there that you think are important, please put them in the chat, share them, more tips, and we will be publishing what's been covered in the webinar here today on the IBASA website as a blog post in the next week. So you'll be able to have access to that too. So Tumelo, if I can turn it over to you.
So yes, firstly, my point is that my advice is two-dimensional. To look at the internal focus, so what needs to be driven from an individual, and also in terms of what solutions can be sought outside of oneself. And also in terms of, it can be applied to both personal and also business likewise. So firstly, the summer holidays or the silly season, as it is sometimes referred to, and that's because of the silly things people do during the time, shouldn't come as a surprise at all, because it's been there before and it will be there again. And then I know that Daphne is going to touch a little bit on the planning and being prepared using the cash flow model. But I wanted to focus more on the being proactive and taking ownership element of that planning and preparation. So being proactive for me means that you will anticipate what would happen, while taking ownership means that you accept that you have to do something about it. So what would happen means that even the problems and the crisis that you could find yourself in, you will tend to anticipate that, but it has to be an initiative that a person makes. So when I grew up, I was loving reading quotes to get inspired or inspiration, because there wasn't much else around me to inspire me in my career ambition. And I still enjoy learning from the quotes, by the way. And I believe they're intended to help someone somewhere out there. But now one of the quotes that got stuck with me was, do not trouble the trouble before the trouble troubles you. And it made a lot of sense. It still does, by the way. But my advice today is against that you actually do the opposite. For the trouble is coming anyway. Do not wait for the trouble to hit before you do something about it. So take initiative, meet the trouble halfway, if I could put it that way. And I'm saying this because in certain instances, you can even make payment arrangements where possible. Now I'm saying payment arrangements because payment arrangements is not only done in part payments where you have missed payments, but you can actually make payment arrangements in advance when you know you are going to hit a time in your life, or you're going to usually come to a season like this where you tend to run out of cash. You can actually make arrangements to pay in advance so that you don't find yourself in a crisis mode. And clients that I've advised on this were quite surprised actually at the response they received from some of the creditors because it was quite favorable. The response that you get. And some of those creditors included even those for long-term loans and even motor vehicle installments, because the crisis that we experience during this time is not isolated. It's something that you find that many other people go through, but it's how you deal with it that will define you and set you apart. So what makes the crisis even bigger is actually dealing with it. When you avoid those private number calls, because you know that it's going to be from your creditors, then it's a problem, because it actually just makes the problem even bigger. You're not solving any problem at all. But if you're more proactive and you've entered into negotiations and some kind of arrangements with those that you owe money to, it actually helps to make your situation much lighter. And the other advice is that don't make the mistake of thinking that you are all alone in the situation that you are faced with. There are many others, as I've indicated already, fortunately, or maybe at least I think so, because if you engage with those others that might be in a similar situation as you, it might help to find some common solutions that will help both yourself and the other people as well. So don't tend to isolate yourself or your challenge, the problem that you find yourself in, and the possible solutions that might come out of talking to other people and other businesses are in the form of, for example, stokvels or even crowdfunding schemes. One of my clients actually helps many other people through this season through a crowdfunding platform. Now, the advantage with crowdfunding platform is that you can determine the terms for the duration that you want to invest in, or even if it's a savings scheme. You're not only restricted to saving for a period of 12 months, you can even have longer terms, medium to longer terms, goals that you will put down funding for, or some kind of a saving for those long-term goals. And that's the one element of it. And the other element is the stokvels. And many of us, we undermine the power of stokvels. And many of us also think that it's for low class and uneducated people. But to your surprise, some of you, there's actually a stokvel-based cooperative bank that has recently been registered, and it obtained a license. There's one I know about 2 years ago. It's called the Young Women in Business Network Holdings, which has obtained a license with the Reserve Bank to trade as a stokvel cooperative bank. So it was born out of the idea of stokvels, where individuals contribute and set aside a certain amount every month, and over a period that money has been collected, and it has amounted to a couple of millions that were then used to set up a cooperative bank, and it is still going in full force. So I will stop it here for now. Thanks.
Great. I hear there are many more tips inside you.
Definitely.
Great. So the creativity around finding solutions that we may actually discard at first, I think I get from you, sort of. So let's come back to that later on in our discussion, if you don't mind, sort of. But Daphne, I would like to come to you. Tumelo referred to the cash flow forecast and so on that you will be speaking about. But sort of what would be the tips that you focus on?
Yes, planning is critical. I think anybody who runs a business should first of all understand that cash flow, a healthy cash flow, is the lifeblood of any organization. The purpose of planning is to ensure that you create the necessary sort of like comfort zone from which you can leverage various opportunities. Because if you've got your back against the wall in terms of how you run your business, mainly being that you don't have enough resources to do what you need to do, that obviously is the beginning of the downfall of your organization. Obviously, in your planning, there are various things to take into consideration. First of all, what are your aspirations with regard to the business? What is your end game? Where do you want to end off? Well, you can predict your profits via your budget, but you must do that in tandem with your cash flow cycles. Now, you cannot achieve that if you do not understand the product that you're dealing with, and if you don't understand the market that you're dealing with. For example, the festive season may not necessarily be your time to make money. It may be at a different time. But then it means it's your lull period where a lot of people are making money, taking advantage of the silly season, as Tumelo said. It may be a time for you to do the necessary planning, or even signing up contracts with other people in order to start early in the year. There's got to be very specific landmarks that you create as to how do you want to conduct your business. Is it going to be a pure cash basis business, if that is the case, there are other things that you need to really take care of. For example, your strict monitoring of your invoices, your orders, and also being very much aware of what opportunities exist within the dealings that you have with either your creditors or your debtors. A lot has been coming through the screen, whereby people talking about taking advantage of discounts. You know, you can negotiate a discount with a creditor and also create an opportunity to get early payment from your debtors. And the key to there is to ensure that your creditors collection or payment period coincides with your debtors collection period. Thereby, you say now the business is running itself. You don't have to have a problem with regard to out-of-pocket expenses. If you have to have those, it's got to be very much actually minimal. So in your planning, the end game should also be to create the necessary reserves so that you are also able to take advantage of the opportunities that may arise. For example, there could be a sudden surge in the demand of your product. But if you do not have money to take advantage thereof, then you have a problem, because then I also advocate that businesses, especially small guys, must learn to sweat whatever money that they have rather than rushing to ask for loans. Because oftentimes people depend on monies that do not belong to them, and as a result, their gearing ratio is completely skewed. So then they come to a point of working from hand to mouth. That's problematic. I have a case in point right now whereby a client of mine is making good money, but the problem is that now cash management is a problem. I got there, the documentation, there was no system in place, you know, but he was sort of like running this business. There are times, and also some of his contracts are with government, and sometimes they get told you cannot get paid for 3 months. But his invoices are very good invoices, whereby one invoice could be about 500K, but there are times when he cannot manage his own business, pay his creditors. I mean, when I took his books and started from scratch, I found that he's buying for cash. For example, he will buy from one provider, twice in a day or 4 times in a day. And that's not business sense. He's got to have a relationship with these guys to say, allow me to get stock and I will pay you at month end. And he does not, the problem is that he does not even plan what he needs to do and what materials he will need during the course of the month and create those kinds of terms. So I had to even go in and speak to the creditors to say, you know how you run your business. Cash flow is very important. You can't expect this person to pay you every day. Now, the worst problem was that I'm coming to the next point now, that you need to separate the business from your personal issues. Now, I could not, for example, do a reconciliation because there were no bank statements, because he was paying his creditors from any account that he had, from credit cards, from what. So you had no information whatsoever. So he knows what he wants to do, but he doesn't know how to go about it. All he does is to ensure that he gets the material that he needs and robbing Peter to pay Paul. That shows, that's a classical example of not planning at all. And as a result, he could not even take advantage of even asking for a discount, because I actually asked him, why do you have to buy 3 times in one day from this particular supplier? Why can't you make arrangements and so on? So it's lack of knowledge, but at the same time, he's got the capability to run this business or to get money in what he's doing, because it's a unique type of business, you know. So in that instance, he can go down at any time, and you can well imagine that from a compliance point of view, there are problems around there. So in the third point that I'd like to come to, that also forms part of the scenario. Should you be, for example, in retail right now, retailers are making a lot of money because it's silly season. Now, as a small guy, obviously you've got slow-moving items and fast-moving items. You may find that over time you've had an item in your stock for about 4 months or so. If it's not, it's one of those that don't expire too early. You've already incurred overheads for it for as many times as possible, probably recover some of the costs via the fast-selling products. So why not pair that product, promote it by pairing it with a fast-selling product, sell it at a little bit lower cost, probably almost close to the cost of getting it, so that you are creating an awareness and promotion for that particular product. So also taking into consideration that now, during this crunch time, you can lose customers or you can actually make more customers. It depends on how you approach this particular season. So that is why planning is very, very critical. If you look at what the big retailers are actually doing, they have now it's Christmas time. They put out all Christmas stuff out in the shops. We're buying them. When you go there around the 25th of December, it's school uniforms that are being sold. And you ask yourself, but Christmas is still that thing. No, they know that school is coming soon and people need to buy. That's when the demand is growing for school uniforms. You know, that's exactly some of the things that need to be taken into consideration. So plan in such a way that you are able to deal with your valleys when there's no business and your peaks, whereby you will make up for the valleys, you know. So it's more even practical with where somebody sells products, but for us service providers, it is the same actually applies. For example, if I'm a trainer in the retail space, no retailer wants to talk about training between October and January. Talk to them around February when they've done their clear their stock and are having new stock, because that's around the time when they now want to train people. It's a bit of a lull. They've sold school uniforms. Now they want to train new staff about new products and so on. So you need to understand both sides of your businesses, how your debtors react and how your creditors actually react.
That's great advice, Daphne. You know, sort of, so we might think of planning as a clinical thing that doesn't relate to other people. But what I hear you say, it's not only about knowing your industry, but it's about knowing the people that you are dealing with. So whether it's your customers or your suppliers, and that relationship, in fact, I think that's a really important point. That's maybe a softer point to make, but it lies behind a lot of the tips, that there are relationships. And if your relationships are strong and you keep building your relationships during the year, when you have a problem, you've got people that already trust you and that will trust you, you know, sort of not to run away, maybe if you have to ask a favor or call for some leniency in some instances. So thank you very much for that, Daphne. Now, these things, of course, all fit together. So let's keep that in mind. You know, so these tips aren't standing loose. But we did run the poll, and Carl, if you can ask you to put up the poll result for us, then we'll be able to see how we voted. It stands out that the most basic one is the winner, because it is so important that we send out our invoices and make time and then follow up so that they're paid on time, especially during this time, because we know after mid-December, you're not going to get any payment until mid-January again, you know, sort of. So be sure to send out your invoices. And that's such a basic tip for our customers, you know, and sometimes they get so bogged down with other things happening around them that they don't attend to that properly. So send the invoices even earlier than normal, and then follow on. You know, don't wait for the time to arrive when it was supposed to happen. Follow on and make sure that the monies come in. And then secondly is to reduce your overheads, which sounds like an obvious one, but quite a difficult one in some instances. But I'm not sure about you guys. When I have a discussion with business clients, normally one finds quite significant savings that they just kind of like that overlooked and got used to over time, you know, sort of. So, and there, of course, the separation of business and own expenses, like Daphne alluded to, is very important. And then let me just focus on a third one here, which is take pre-orders for next year. So here we go into kind of a bit more innovative way of dealing with it, and the longer term planning. So both Carl and Daphne spoke about that extensively, you know, sort of know your industry, know your cycles, so that you can plan for these times. So, you know, sort of pre-orders maybe, or discounts based on pre-orders. Maybe one way to deal with that too. So the poll is done and dusted, which means we can move on to our next topic. So by the way, we are seeing the comments happening here. So Vumile, Dudu, and so on. Thanks, Vinod, for your comments there on the side. You can add more tips in there if you are thinking of some. And then, of course, if there are questions that you would like us to attend to, we'll try to, if time permits, to do so. But you have to put that in the Q&A. Otherwise, it's going to disappear if you just put it in the chat area. But if I may move on to Patrick, so Patrick, you've been sitting there patiently. I've seen you've been shaking your head in agreement. So when it comes to the practicality of advising your clients, what is it that you would be sharing with them?
Unmute. Thank you.
Yeah, you can speak.
Thank you for unmuting me. Yes, my focus is around the top line. So I focus really around sales and marketing. That's sort of my passion, and people get increases around 30%, I must say. So I've been lucky, fortunate to be able to have that impact. And some of the things I've seen work around the top line aspect, which is another part of, I think, the top factor in staunching cash flow is also looking at increasing cash, right? So what I seen work is actually one of the things that I've seen work is charging for next year now. So that kills several birds. If you charge early enough, early enough in the end of the year, you still are probably able to. So that's good. You assure yourself of business into the new year, right? And I mean, Daphne, you were speaking about training programs. Sure, they might not have budget in the time, but if you plan ahead and you charge them early enough for that into the new year, then that's something that I've seen work. And yeah, and of course you get a guaranteed guaranteed outlay into the new year. So that's something that is powerful. Another thing from a sales side and a sales marketing side that I've seen really helpful is really trying to look at what you currently have. You mentioned definitely on the retail front, if you have stock that is expiring or as it's moved and shifted. But a lot of my clients sort of provide consulting services as well as physical products, and what I've seen work for them is to really try and look at what they do and see who else they can do it for, particularly around their knowledge services. And I think the knowledge aspect, the consulting aspect, is great because you're usually looking at a smaller outlay in terms for their clients. They don't have to pay as much for that as opposed to a product. So, and of course, it serves as good marketing if you go out and consult on your area of expertise. So, so that actual advice is to who else, what customer segment can you look at? If you've been, and I mean, a lot of my clients look at either total B2B or do a bit of B2B, B2C in that, in what they do. So why don't you then look at B2C if you've been a B2B focused company, offering workshops to the public around the area of expertise. So that's something that's worked for a waste management or waste management company that I work with. And again, in terms of the sales aspect, maybe just to wrap up on that, I saw someone mentioning discounts. Sorry, definitely mentioned that as well. Rather than discounting, why not produce bare bone versions of what you currently do? It's easier if it's on a consulting side where you can have smaller interventions and less, smaller interventions. But if you plan in time, you can also probably do that with a product business as well, and have, you know, I mean, it ties into the segment as well. But it's rather about having different price points so that you expand your potential market. So those are my 3 tips.
Yeah, bare bone. That's the interesting one, eh? Sort of like a scale down, a light version, you know, sort of. So give a reason to give a discount rather than just give a discount. So the reason may be we give the discount because you pay us now and we're going to deliver the service later, or the reason may be we give you a smaller scale down version of what you would normally get. I also saw a tip, I'm not sure if it's made it into our list, that relates to that, which is go to clients that in the previously said, or prospective clients that previously said they are you're too expensive, you know, sort of, and find a reason to give them a little discount now, and you may find doing business with them. So there are a lot of different kind of permutations of that. But thanks, Patrick, for that perspective on the tips too. So, Linda, I would like to come to you now. By the way, just to remind you, if you put a Q&A, I think I see Irashan and Terence and Sipa Mandla and Dudu have all kind of commented there on the Q&A. So we'll try to come to those discussion points if we have time, or as long as we have some time to address them too. But Linda, let's hear from you, you know, sort of your practical tips in terms of the cash crunch during this time of the year.
Thank you so much, Christoph, and hi to everybody this morning. I'll go straight into it. I'm actually on tip number 7, which is to use social media marketing as a marketing strategy during this time. If you haven't yet made social media a crucial part of your brand's marketing strategy, then this would be a very good time, because customers are more likely to go onto your social media profiles before they actually come to your website. And you find that the reason why most of you use social media is because you're trying to drive traffic to your website. So this is also a very nice time for you to engage with your customers and also send out information that is less harsh, you know, in terms of pushing what it is that your company does, but also incorporating the human element into it, in that you can send out notes of gratitude to your followers, to people that are within your industry and your customers. You can also, this is more your short-term sort of like solutions for this silly season. Also, more visits to your social media profiles will boost your page, your page presence, you know, your ranking, and it will also improve your chances of appearing amongst top ranked pages, so that when people actually search for you online, they're able to find your business and your offerings. Also, I'd like to say that use this time as well to, if you're having promotions and events, social media is a very good platform to actually send out this information for you. I'm sorry, somebody says the sound. Christoph, okay, the sound, okay. Also with events as well. So sometimes I find that people want to post events, but they don't actually put it out as an actual event. The platform that I use mostly is Facebook marketing. Facebook has a wider reach, and you're able to target your audience. You're able to speak to the specific audience that you want. So if you just want to speak specifically to your audience, be it just your customers, you can do that. Or if you want to speak to your partners or your suppliers, you're able to sort of like go into that specific. Also, I wanted to say, for instance, now in eventing, it's also a good time, whatever sort of like corporate social investment, sort of like events that you're doing within your company, you can actually put that out on social media and just create a hype on that. It also, it's good for you to drive traffic, organically generated traffic. This is traffic that you get from people that are also associated onto your, or affiliated to your sites and to your social media platforms. Also, this is also a very good time, like Daphne mentioned that, somebody says they can't hear me. Okay.
Yeah, the sound is a bit, we've tried to improve it. So, but you know, Linda, we are our December webinar, we're going to look at LinkedIn, your LinkedIn profile as a business advisor specifically, and how we can use that. So maybe that's a time for us to, maybe you can come in on that discussion, sort of for us to talk a bit about the social media context within that. So, but while it's difficult now to sort out your sound, but perhaps we shall move on and then we can come back to the social media issues in December again. By the way, you'll keep your eyes open for the email to invite you to that webinar and register for it too. So if you don't mind, Linda, that we move on to the next poll, which is after you've heard 4 people speak now, 5 in fact, including Carl, about the different topics or tips. And we've also seen a lot of activity here in the chat and questions around different kinds of tips. So if you would now consider, if you go back to the poll, if you now would consider, would you vote differently on what the important things are, sort of just revise your thoughts there, what you would think as we go on to the doctor. Let's unmute you. You don't have to worry about that. We'll do it for you. So going from practical tips around planning and understanding relationships with different people and thinking a bit outside of the box. What else should we be taking into account in advising our customers? So remember, this is what it is about. It's about helping our customers so that they can see themselves through this period. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Now, my financial tip was very simple. Cancel your debit orders so that you have control over your finances. If money goes off your account at the wrong time, you incur a lot of extra costs, as you may or may not know it. And that can put you into a very difficult position. So you've got to take that control back. And that's the quickest way of giving you some room with your cash flow. But as I said, I can carry on that. But there's 2 other issues. Your psychological side is so important right now, because this is where businesses make it or they fall. And we all know the statistics on how quickly businesses fold. I specialize in that area. But the next area, after you've created a bit of room for yourself, is to look at your spiritual side. Now, if someone like Anton Rupert will tell you that you should believe in miracles, this is a time to start praying as well. And I really mean that, to pray for your business, pray for your clients, and build your own confidence by counting your own blessings, because you've got to program your mind at this point in time. If you're going to be focusing on all the negative stuff, you're not going to be having any planning for the year coming up. And once you count those blessings of you, you'll see you've got it much better than most other people. And when you do this, then you can start seeing that this should not define you. It's just a period. And it's so easy that I've had a lady, an attorney, that canceled the debit orders, and she was so happy. It made a difference for 3 months in her life. But she still committed suicide. And now that's terrible. But I never looked at the psychological or spiritual side of this woman. And that's why I'm saying, don't think that you should not go there for professional reasons, because that's part of your faith. It's part of making a difference. And when you can sow as well into your business, so that you make sure that what you give out is what you will receive back as well. It's not a question of just getting in business. You're always giving more than you will receive. But by doing that, at the end of the day, you will get far more due to increase. Thank you so much. Wow, that's sweet and sound. So short and sweet and sound. But if you if you would go into that dimension a bit more, sort of in what way would you, what advice would you give people that are maybe a bit more business advisors that are a bit more focused on the clinical cash flow planning stuff? Should they be going to the space to say, listen, I'm also a person, I can give you a bit more kind of support in that space? Or should they rather pull in an associate that they know of that's maybe focused on coaching and that kind of dimension? Chris, the reality is your cheapest form of finance is from your debtors, okay? And I'm not referring to debtors, the bank that you having your car being, where your car loan is, but the people that you are doing things for. If you have a relationship with them, and that's why I see everybody's going to the planning phase, then you can talk to them. But you must always bear in mind that this relationship is reciprocal. Sometimes you've got to give, which is a discount or more favorable terms.
And other times you got to be able to call that person and say, but can you pay me earlier? I found in my businesses that I've had that you've got to build those relationships. And as long as you give and take, and not just, and you should not be perceived as a person that's always taking, then you'll go ahead with it, and it makes a huge difference in your life. So from a practical level, yes, I think praying is practical. Okay, make no mistake. I'll bring out a book soon enough about all the miracles of my life, and there's a lot of business miracles. But I know you have to do the sensible stuff as well. And this is where it's all about, you're going to give what you expect to get back, but you have to give without counting every little thing. If you have to do some work at this point in time, like pro bono work, see it as part of your marketing. See it as part of reaching the people that you won't normally reach. And you mentioned that you can give a person a discount, but sometimes having a seminar and getting people there makes such a difference, because then you make them aware of what you can offer them. But you're already giving them a lot for free. But that's the way they gain confidence in you to take you to the next level. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. Thank you very much for that. So I'm going to close the poll now that we opened in the background there. So, or Carl, you want to show it quickly? I think let's close it. We're running out of time. So we'll come back to the result of the poll that we were running in the background there just now, guys. So please be patient with us there. But it gives us the opportunity to actually move on to some of the Q&A questions that were posted. And I'm going to ask Carl if you can give us a gallery view of everyone in the room, then we can speak quicker. And I'm going to unmute everyone too, so that the panel can participate in the discussion without having to worry about that too much. So Irashan is saying this is a session or a time where most people, or season rather, or time when most people spend. You know, the consumers are spending their money. Some even have extra funds that they need to access. Why don't businesses put plans in place to gain some of that market? Why don't you ask for end of your discount from suppliers? Okay, so two suggestions there. Thanks, Ira. It's in the form of a question. So I'm not sure if someone would like to just comment on that. Anyone of the panel, put up your hand. Anyone wants to reply on that, to that one, to Irashan's point? Shall we move on to the next one?
Can I come in there?
Yes.
Yes, I think it's simply called the question then becomes, businesses also organize sales and so on because they want to push their their revenue and so on, or their sales amounts. But again, it depends on the state of the economy. Now, if things go up, the volumes may not be the same. You may be paying more for less. So that is why some business may not actually get to succeed. This is whereby now a business that is sort of like struggling at this point in time, they need to sit back and actually check what has happened with their plan. Is it an external factor that's affecting them, or is it something within the business that they did not do in order to actually succeed? On the other side, you may find that it's actually maybe a chain reaction. If you are dependent on a particular manufacturer who's supposed to deliver your stuff pre the silly season, and for some reason they go bankrupt, and that was the guy with whom you had created an agreement and have a good relation, and they can no longer supply you with the stock that you were hoping for. So it becomes a chain reaction, and you die a slow death as well as them. So it could be various factors. Basically, some of them could be from internal, and some could be from the external side. Or possibly you must just check whether there's been more entrance in the market with regards to your product, or check whether your product is it not getting outdated. Are you still using the old system, and people are already on other things? So that is why you've got to keep constant tab in terms of your business, your surroundings. What are the new things that are coming in and so on? People are talking Facebook and so on. And if you are still talking fax machine, then you are totally archaic. You don't belong to the current. Sure.
Yeah. I wonder when last anyone on this webinar used the fax machine. But so thank you very much for those that are participating in the Q&A, and I see some have went ahead, and Daryl and Terence is having a conversation there, sort of. So if you're not in the Q&A, go there. There's some nice conversations happening there. That's more tips and so on. But let's just so Sipa Mandla is asking about the stock files and so on. So I'm not sure if you'll be able to address that right here, but I think it's Dudu's talking about contracts, and I find that an interesting one. So is it possible, if not for this year, to move in the future to advise your clients to rather enter contracts that banks may finance in some instances if that's necessary, or that actually gives you the security of due payments on certain times? So contracts as opposed to kind of looser relationships with your customers. So I'm not sure if anyone wants to comment on that. We're starting to run out of time. So perhaps that is kind of the last point that we will be discussing today. And then we'll also ask the panel to give a final word on this. So those points that have not been covered, we can maybe, Carl, if we can cover that as far as we can in the post-webinar blog. So have your eye on the IBASA website. There will be a post-webinar blog there summarizing all of these things. So sorry for those questions that we couldn't get to. But shall we do that the last one? Sort of who wants to talk about contracts before we start wrap up?
Well, if in the building industry, what type of contracts is this here in the building industry? The industry is shutting down. There's not much you can do right now. Don't fight the holidays. Enjoy it. Be peaceful, because it's not going to make a difference. Next year is a year to battle. So what you can rather do is focus on your marketing during this period where you have time and energy.
Yeah.
If I may also add, remember, as a business, you constantly have to have an order book going all along with confirmed contracts, because then you are able to plan better. So if you are operating by the seat of your pants, there's no future. You are headed for a downfall. So it is very critical to create that order book that's healthy, that's existing, and you maintain the relationship throughout, because then you are able to place all these orders in the right places. As you do your cash flow management month by month, you know where your dips are and when to expect money and so on. So you are not basically shooting in the dark in terms of how you are operating.
Yeah. No, definitely so. So planning again, relationships and planning, and look after yourself. If I can summarize the whole discussion for myself, sort of, thanks for those tips, sort of look after yourself, plan ahead, and then build the relationships so that when you have to call on them, they help you going forward. We'll go around the room just now for the panel members, and then we'll come to some IBASA news with Thabiseng and talk about those things. But before we do so, we've got the poll shared there. The first poll that we had compared to where we are at the end of the discussion, and being proactive and taking ownership is clearly standing out. So it's not kind of that nitty-gritty thing about cash and cash flow that's the solution for most of us. It is helping our clients to be proactive, and that starts way before November. And then also planning, budgeting, cash flow streams, things to take into consideration going into the future stands out as a strong one, as well as cut down on expenses. So we can't get away from that. And there is this creep, during the year, a lot of our clients do not keep tabs on what is happening. There's a price increase here and there, and they don't even notice sometimes. And they just to use this time perhaps to have a closer look at that. So those are from the audience attending and their votes. So let's go around. So Linda, if you can keep it short, everyone, just kind of a final thought on how we support our customers during the cash crunch of the silly season. Linda.
Thank you so much, Christos. Over and above using social media and collaborations with, like you said earlier on, with companies that you were unable to do business with in the beginning of the year. So this would be a nice time to just form a collaboration and just check with them. Listen, I'm still available, and this is the services I'll be offering in the new year. and also collaborate with people that are within your industry as well, by giving out information that is industry-based and trends that are coming out for 2019 within the industry. So you can look out for those.
Linda, we still can't hear you so well, but I can hear that you're talking about collaboration, and so let's take that as the final thought, if you're okay with that. And then Patrick, what is your final thought?
My final thought, really, since I'm sales focused, is that sales around value. So think of ways that you can be of value to not just your existing clients, but to other segments you haven't thought of, with what you have as knowledge and expertise, as well as your products. And yeah, and go out there and be
Thanks, Patrick. Daphne, what is your final thought?
I would like to say, the clients, our businesses should always remember that to have reserves is always important, and going for credit should almost be like the last resort. And you actually need to use credit for expansion, not to run the day-to-day business. Your reserves can be used for that. Also, if you need to expand. So it's important that you ensure that you have cash somewhere reserved to manage your business. And please don't go and buy BMWs when you don't need them.
No. But if you need them, you may buy them.
Yeah, I mean, perhaps you need a bucket to carry your groceries, but then you go and buy a BMW because your neighbor has one.
Yes. Yeah.
Priorities, please. Yeah.
Indeed. Sjoerd, what is your final thought?
Well, I think you've had a wonderful panel here with excellent inputs, and I can really comment and commend everyone here. They know what they're talking about. But obviously, it's got to be specific to every business, and be careful of generic advice, because you have to look at everyone individually. Otherwise, you'll definitely burn your fingers. And make sure you keep up with legislation as well. Otherwise, your good advice today may be nonsense next week. So yeah. I'd leave you with that.
Great.
Thank you.
Thanks for that. And Tumelo.
I think we must always continue to look for ways to supplement our main income stream, but without losing focus of our core business and our expertise. That's in short for me. Thanks.
Great. Thank you very much. And Carl, you're going to take the task on your shoulders to produce a post-webinar blog post for us. So what can we look forward to there?
Yeah, I think we've got such a wide range of inputs from the panelists, from the participants, from registration. Really, I think lots of users tips there, but I think I should just say, take that into context of your specific client in their specific context, and understand what your strengths are and what they are not. You know, I need to say on this, you know, while people have told me before, you've got a good face for radio, I can say Patrick's got a good voice for radio, you know, so you've got to know where you are. Yeah, I think it's a great basis of learning, but like everything else, don't just generalize, and make sure that you understand your specific customer situation.
Yeah, no, great. Thank you very much for your participation, panelists, and your attention, attendees, people that were in the chat and on the Q&A. Don't go away yet, because we're going to still talk about some IBASA stuff. But there's a question in terms of contacting panelists. So panelists, if you're happy to give your contact details to the whole group, type in there. Otherwise, attendees, you can direct message, by the way, the panelists too there. So do that and ask for their contact details. But Linda, Sjoerd, Daphne, Patrick, Tumelo, if you don't mind sharing your details in the chat, you may do so. There's some people that would like to keep talking to you. Cool. So stay with us, please. Tabi Singh Sibaya is IBASA's membership officer. And you would see there in the background, perhaps we can go on to speaker view now, Carl. You'll see there in the background, Tabi's got the new IBASA logo showing, and as well as some text there giving us contact details and so on. So I was saying, let's start off with news that you would like to share, and then maybe we can move on to people that'd like to join IBASA. I'm trying to unmute you, but I'm still doing so. There you are.
Hi, everybody. Yes, I've got a statement. Yes, the CEO is currently at the SABIC conference today. That is a conference where the South Africa, the theme of it is the creating inclusive entrepreneurial growth through incubation. And also, we'd like to encourage all the members that are IBASA member to participate in the regional chapters. And also, if you are a new member, please join us as we're trying to professionalize business advising. To join us, to become a new member, you can visit our website at ibasa.org.za. And the membership, there's a form that you can fill in, and you pay a non-refundable fee of 600 rands.
Great, that's quite sweet. Can you just repeat it for us, and perhaps can we also type in the chat a link or email address that people that would like to join or connect with you around membership could do? Okay.
For new members, you can send all your inquiries or any questions you have to admin@ibasa.org.za.
Okay, it's also showing on the screen right there now. So apart from that, shall we say that it was a productive Thursday morning for most of us? And perhaps you can just, for us to wave, Carl, set us back onto the gallery screen share that we could all say goodbye. So thank you very much, Linda, Patrick, Sjoerd, Daphne, Carl, Tumelo, Dabi, for a good webinar again. And watch out for the next one. It's going to be on how we promote ourselves through LinkedIn specifically. So the real practical tip that how we can make our LinkedIn page and activity, the stuff that we do on LinkedIn, work for us as professionals, as business advisors. Of course, we need to promote ourselves too. And maybe in December, there's time for us, sort of to be tweaking those things and go and take a nice photograph that's giving the professional image that we want to portray too, so that we can do business well in 2019. Thank you, everyone. Looking forward to it.
Thank you. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.